One of the most common criticisms in regards to intelligent design is the opposition that DNA is not information in the sense that originated from a mind, but rather under naturalistic laws, including the laws of biochemistry. The exclusion of an intelligent cause over the behavior of biochemistry as being the ultimate explanation for how DNA managed to be sequential and orderly based is a well-synthesized argument made by the ID critics like scientist Sam.
Let's delve into premise 1. DNA is information. From my understanding of computer science and information theory, this is true. Information is generally understood as a sequence of digital symbols. Such a sequence can inform you, and hence, it can be said to be information. To clarify terms, a sequence is an ordered collection of symbols. Digital means that these symbols are best mapped to a discrete rather than continuous function. Trivially, this is the case with DNA. We can consider the nucleotides to be symbols, and anyone with a year 1 education in university biology would agree that it comes in sequences. However, this definition isn't adequate to satisfy premise 2. That is, under this definition, information does not necessarily come from a mind. We could consider sand dunes information under this definition, as long as we keep those sand dunes in a sequence and map their shapes into digital symbols.
By referring to examples such as sand dunes, or to make things even more vividly, the formation of a snowflake, it is insisted that the same process must be true for DNA as well. In a nutshell, given that there are things in nature that appear to be well orderly structured, it must be true that DNA is nothing more but the same byproduct. But moving that argumentation aside, there is also the opposing claim of how improbability does not necessarily and unequivocally point to design, or at least a mind. Critics like Sam, who rely on this type of rebuke, have this preconceived notion that ID proponents like William Dembski are using highly unlikely statistical odds as evidence that there must be a creator or mind. Quite the contrary, this is not really the point ID proponents address, but we'll get into that in another video. But let's move on and see whether or not Sam has really refuted the information argument. It looks like that Sam, judging by the contents of his video, seems to agree overall that DNA is digital information due to the specific characteristics it has. That is, 1, it comes in a sequential order, and 2, it is made up of discrete units, in this case the nucleotides. However, the distinction Sam makes here from that implied by the intelligent design proponents is that he excludes such information as being the result of some intelligent base cause over a purely biochemical cause. The idea of biochemistry, or the laws of physics capable of creating such information, sequential order or structure, is something that comes from what is known as self-organization. Self-organization is a process where some form of order arises out of the local interactions between smaller components parts of an initially disordered system. So, does self-organization actually explain the origin of DNA information? Not necessarily. The problem here with Sam conflating DNA information to that of sand dunes or of that of a self-organized snowflake is really not that hard to grasp if one paid close attention to the distinct characteristics between that of DNA and those that are self-organized or structured in nature. Self-organizational theorists like Sam often point to simple geometric shapes or repetitive forms of order like the sand dunes arising from or being modified by purely physical or chemical processes. They suggest that such order provides a model for understanding the origin of biological information or body plan morphogenesis. Self-organizational theorists like Sam love to point out to crystals, vortex, and even convection currents to illustrate the supposed power of physical processes to generate order for free. However, there are flaws with this type of reasoning. The first point to consider here is that both DNA and self-organized structures like salt crystals are all chemistry-based. They are all made up of atoms that can be expressed in a simple chemical formula. Salt crystals, for example, are based on the chemical formula as NaCl. That is sodium chloride, while DNA can be expressed as ATCNG. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you look closely at not just the molecular structure of a self-organized system, but the behavior, you will notice an interesting observation. There is 1, order of repetitiveness or pattern, and 2, geometric and translational symmetry. Salt crystals, for example, which were the first structures determined using X-ray techniques, have a highly repetitive molecular structure of sodium and chlorine atoms arranged in a 3-dimensional grid, a pattern in which one type of atom always has 6 of the other types surrounding it. That is, you will find a highly periodic molecular structure of nothing but NaCl, 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 NaCl. Not only does a salt crystal have a highly repetitive pattern form, but it also has geometric and translational symmetry. That is, the atoms are arranged in a symmetrical fashion on a three-dimensional face and also look the same even when moved. The point here is that it is a well-established fact that the self-assembly of crystals and other self-organizing structures that are governed by the pure laws of chemistry or physics are by rule repetitive, pattern-based, and geometrically symmetrical. The same repetitive and symmetrical molecular structure as observed in salt crystals are as true as the molecular structures and atoms observed in snowflakes. This is well known among those that study the physics of crystallology and in the field of self-assembly chemistry. Here we can finally make an important distinction on what differentiates the information of DNA from natural geometric structures. Unlike the self-assembly molecular structure of a snowflake crystal and other self-organizing systems which are strictly governed by the laws of chemistry or physics, the molecular structure of DNA, more specifically the nucleotides or presence of amino acids of a given functional protein, are actually non-repetitive and sequence-specific with respect to function without being based on some certain pattern, following rather an irregular and highly unusual behavior contrary to the ubiquitous laws of self-assembly chemistry. Following the rule that the self-assemblage of inorganic molecular structures formed in nature are periodic and geometrically symmetric, as observed in that of salt crystals and snowflakes, one would therefore expect the arrangement of nucleotides or amino acids to be highly repetitive and arranged into a similar third-dimensional molecular fashion as that of simple geometric shapes formed in nature. Yet that is not what is observed in DNA for reasons stated before. In addition, there are distinguishing characteristics between the information of DNA and those that appear to be naturally formed by nature. One of the unique things about DNA is that it contains specified complexity. Specified complexity, not to be confused with irreducible complexity, is basically meaningful information that results into a specific communicative effect or function conveyed by the precise or special arrangement of symbols or discrete units. Let's look at an actual example of specified complexity. In this sentence, this message here is specifically complex. When it comes to specified complexity, there are unique characteristics involved that only intelligent minds can put into effect. 1. There is no pattern, no repetitiveness involved in determining the overall structure and content of the message. In other words, the precise arrangement of the English alphabet letters that convey meaningful information cannot be predicted mathematically nor expressed by using some certain equation. Patterns by definition are repetitive, whether obvious or subtle, and are therefore predictable. In specified complexity, however, no matter how hard you try, you will not find a distinct regularity or some certain pathway that determines the precise arrangement of the characters or symbols and the words used. In specified complexity, the precise arrangement of characters or symbols, in this case the English alphabet letters, are not necessarily random like that found in gibberish sentence structure, but rather directed. By contrast, simple geometric figures like star crystals, snowflakes, spiral galaxies, and so on can be determined and predicted mathematically as they are by nature repetitive and follow a certain pattern. Geometric spirals, for example, formed by nature follow a golden ratio rule that can be expressed and predicted mathematically using the Fibonacci sequence. Even among the laws of physics, there is repetitiveness as the laws only describe repetitive or pattern-based phenomena. The distinguishing differences between information produced by the mind are 1. Non-repetitive or non-pattern based, 2. Unpredictable, and 3. Special arrangement of characters or symbols.
The sequence begins with the numbers 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and continues indefinitely. Each number is obtained by adding the last two digits together. If we were to take a perfect or golden rectangle, break it down into smaller squares based on Fibonacci's sequence, and divide each with an arc, the patterns begin to take shape. We begin to see Fibonacci's spiral. The spiral in and of itself is insignificant. Its importance is revealed in where we find it. Take, for example, the sunflower. The display of its florets are in perfect spirals of 55, 34, and 21. The sequence of Fibonacci. The fruitlets of the pineapple create this same spiral based on the sequence. The pine cone does the same. As currents move through the ocean and the tide rolls onto the shore, the waves that bring in the tide curve into a spiral that can be mathematically diagrammed onto a plot at the points 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and 55. Buds on trees, sand dollars, starfish, petals on flowers, and especially the nautilus shell are formed with this exact same blueprint. With each segment of growth, the nautilus adds to itself one more value on Fibonacci's scale. This blueprint can be seen around us on a small scale every day, but the greatest example of all is directly above our heads. At an average of 100,000 light years across, even the spiral of the galaxies above us are formed with the exact design that the tiny shell is formed.
What does all this have to do with Sam's claim of nature being capable of producing information? Simply this. The laws-like self-organizing processes that generate the kind of order present in crystal or vortex do not generate specified information. The kind of non-repetitive and highly sequence-specific order present in a gene or functionally complex organ. Laws of nature, by definition, only involve order in the sense that can be described with differential equations or universal if-then statements. The information-bearing sequences in protein coding DNA and RNA molecules do not once again exhibit such repetitive pattern. As such, these sequences can be neither described nor explained by reference to a natural law or law-like self-organizational process. The kind of non-repetitive, non-pattern based on display in DNA and RNA, a precise sequential order necessary to ensure function, is not the kind of laws of nature in principle generate or explain. So it seems that one of the problems Sam faces in regards to his claim that information of DNA can be explained by purely chemical means under some self-organization or necessity is denied by the fact that the self-assembly of molecular structures and repetitive order or pattern of sand dunes, vortex, spiral galaxies created by nature do not really coincide so well with the biochemical structure and arrangement found in DNA, including the precise arrangement, sequencing of nucleotides or amino acids in respect to function and a specific third-dimensional protein fold. There is actually no law outside the field of organic chemistry that is able to coincide with the non-repetitive and special arrangement that conveys specified information and function as observed in living organisms. Another point I would like to emphasize is that the laws of biochemistry themselves do not predetermine nor account for the precise arrangement of amino acids nor DNA information. This seems rather self-evident, and it is clear that the laws like gravity in the cells are incapable of properly self-tuning into the appropriate conditions for life without flattening anything on the face of the earth or throwing it out to space. Until an actual mechanism is observed that coincides with the unique characteristics of DNA being non-repetitive and sequence-specific or specially arranged, there is no reason to presume a biochemical cause, as that has yet to be observed, something which Sam never really bothered to explain in complete detail in regards to what exactly in biochemistry is predetermining or accounting for the specified information or at least the special arrangement on DNA. Thanks for watching.